Well, g'day there, podcaster.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wrong tone, Ben. This is a highly classified podcast. So let's try and keep it professional, okay?
Of course, sorry.
Thank you. That's much better. We're going to be talking like this for the whole episode because we're going to be joined by Nick Pope. He's a former UK Ministry of Defence official who has investigated UFOs.
God.
I said keep it professional, goddammit.
I couldn't help myself.
For nigh on 3 decades, okay? This guy has seen it all the classified documents.
All the UFOs.
That's enough sneaky sound system.
Sorry.
So if you are into your extraterrestrial people and behaviour and aliens and UFOs, strap in because we are going to be chatting to Nick for quite a while because there is a lot to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually joins us now via Zoom link. Just checking, Nick, is this line secure?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There could be some people listening on our end, unfortunately. But look, I am very, very excited because you're the real deal. Like, you have you've investigated these things and you've had the highest sort of level of clearance. I mean, I suppose the obvious question to ask outright is, are they out there? Do they exist? Have you seen a UFO?
I have not seen one personally, but having investigated hundreds of cases and having handled this subject for the British Ministry of Defence, I'm convinced there's something out there. And I think we've seen in recent years this whole situation transition from fringe to mainstream to the extent that now, for example, we've got hearings about this in the United States Congress.
Yeah. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing that I find wild with UFOs is with smartphones these days, the cameras are so good, we never seem to capture super clear footage of them. Why is that, Nick?
Well, the glib answer is because they're very, very fast and, blink and you miss them. We have actually got, in recent years, some fairly good footage from forward-looking infrared cameras mounted on US military jets that have been involved in attempted intercepts of some of these objects.
Whoa.
So there is some good footage out there. We've seen some of them, but I have to say the best stuff is probably still classified.
Well, that's the thing. I thought this was all classified, Nick, and yet here you are after working for decades in this line of work and now talking worldwide about it. Is there a whole array of information that you personally can't even share with us?
There is some, yes, but I should say I'm not a whistleblower. And when I talk about information that I've handled at the Ministry of Defence, I am only talking about things which are either unclassified or which the Ministry of Defence has declassified. And in fact, we did release literally tens of thousands of pages of documents, actually quite a lot of which I wrote, on this in a program that lasted for several years. So I'm not divulging any state secrets. So even though I said that this is a secure line and the men in black are probably listening in, we're not going to be, they're not going to be knocking on your door quite yet.
Good. Even the fact, though, Nick, that there is classified information is intriguing. Can I ask, what would be the reason for something being classified? Would it be because it hasn't been studied yet, it's unexplained? Is that why
Or
it's classified?
Scary?
Yeah.
It's a whole range of different things. Sometimes it's just fairly mundane things like information that would disclose the capabilities of, for example, our military radar systems, how far out they can detect things. Same with military satellites. We know that UFOs are sometimes tracked on military satellite, but we don't want to actually let potential adversaries know how good our systems are, which is one of the reasons we don't see so many of these photos. So it can be that sort of thing. But of course, there are rumors that the US government or elements in the US intelligence community are sitting on a smoking gun. And of course, we've got a new administration here at the moment, and they've just set up a federal task force to look into whether these rumors are true or not. So kind of exciting times for anyone with an interest in this topic.
You also mentioned, Nick, there's tens of thousands of pages of unclassified documents. Now, you obviously had a high position in the Ministry of Defence. Now, for someone who doesn't have the time to go through all those documents, can you give us top line what the most exciting piece of declassified information there is?
From the British government files, it's probably a case called the Rendlesham Forest incident. This wasn't lights in the sky. Something actually landed.
Whoa.
And then there were burn marks on the
Oh.
sides of the trees. And they investigated the landing site with a Geiger counter. And the Ministry of Defense file states that the radioactivity levels seemed significantly higher than the average background.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, then my head just goes to, oh, well, it's a piece of a rocket or a plane that's fallen and, you know, there's some radiation that's come from it or it's whatever.
But that doesn't make any sense because then it would still be there if it was a rocket that had fallen to the Earth. It's crazy. That's crazy.
True. Well, I do want to ask about Area 51, obviously. So you just mentioned before about all the weapons that might be being hidden. What can you tell us of your knowledge goes on in Area 51?
Well, it definitely exists. I mean, it's a real place. And the official line is that that's where all sorts of cutting edge aerospace technology, everything from the U-2 spy plane to more modern stealth fighters and stealth bombers, were developed and test flown there. Of course, conspiracy theorists say that's where the crashed UFO from Roswell was taken, and that's where they're reverse engineering the alien hardware. I don't know if that's true or not. If it is, I'm afraid they didn't tell me.
Yeah, right. So, Nick, I mean, obviously, when we think aliens as well, for some reason, in our heads, they're always crashing in Nevada. It's always Area 51. Obviously, it's a big old planet. You know, you're talking about your research in the UK. Is there a department in Australia that would be looking at this sort of stuff in our own backyard as well for things? You know, we've got a lot of land mass. There could be things landing anywhere.
Yes, the Australian military has files on this. I think some have been declassified. What we learned just actually a few months ago was that the US government held a meeting on UFOs at the Pentagon, and they opened it up to the Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Alliance. So representatives from Australia, along with the other Five Eyes nations, did attend that meeting at the Pentagon. So somebody in Australia, somebody probably in the military intelligence world, knows a little bit more about this than they might be saying in public.
Right. So, in your opinion, Nick, I mean, I still picture an alien like a big blob of jelly with some big eyes, a big
I think
head.
there's a photo behind you. There's like a cartoon. That's kind of that is the classic
Yeah.
alien. That's how we all picture it.
That's them. That's the little grey guys. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, Nick. Do you think, in your experience, that's what they look like, or do they look like people?
Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. And in fact, you're talking of Australia, there was a really interesting Australian abduction case involving a woman called Kelly Cahill from 1993. And this was a case, a small humanoid entity, but red eyes in this case. And the fun fact about that is the Kelly Cahill Australian abduction was name checked in the X-Files reboot a few years ago.
Right. Okay, so looks like a person, but with red eyes. Could be a person after a big
What
night.
was that?
But yeah.
What was that thing? Was that in Mexico? Do you remember like a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, and they were like, we found an alien. And it was like that little guy with the thin arms and the big head. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of looked like a fossil from like a tomb.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. These are kind of little
Yeah.
mummies.
Whatever happened to that
People
little
say,
mummy?
Mummified extraterrestrials. Well, this is typical of the kind of rumor that does the round on the internet. I've been following this with interest. The challenge with all this is to get it into a laboratory and to get it written up in peer-reviewed scientific journals. I hope that's going to happen. And if it does, of course, and if it checks out, it will change the world forever.
Wow.
What, in terms of Hollywood, gets it closest to the pin? There's TV shows and movies. A lot of them try to cover off the topic of sci-fi. Who gets the closest, in your opinion?
I would love to say the X-Files, and I love the show, but it's not. The two movies that get closest to my mind are Contact, about picking up the radio signal,
Yeah.
and Arrival, which is a really
good one.
That's a good movie.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, the big thing. Yeah.
Doesn't the thing arrive and they don't know, and then they investigate it?
It's less like the green guys, you know, in the flying saucer. It's more like, what the hell is this? Like a big giant floating rock that we don't understand, and there's sounds that we don't understand. And I'm with you there, Nick. I haven't really studied this field, but I get you.
I'm glad you didn't say War of the Worlds. I would have been a bit worried.
The only one I'm really familiar with is District 19, and I do like that one, but that one scares me a lot as well because it's nothing. I mean, they're described as prawns, nothing like humans at all, and that's scary.
What about, like, people, you hear stories about like crop circles and that sort of stuff, and then other people just be like, they're just mowing that in. Like, have you looked into them much?
Yeah, I'm fairly skeptical about that, I have to say. I was first in some of the really spectacular formations, and some of them do incorporate really interesting mathematical and geometric information. But I suspect it's pranks from kind of science-minded students. And of course, a couple of old guys said that they enjoyed making patterns late at night with a cold beer or two afterwards.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on people think that aliens are obviously definitely out there, but they're not contacting us for a reason? They're kind of just observing us from a distance. Do you think there's any truth to that?
It could be. I mean, this is, I suppose, something that we see in Star Trek. I mean, it's literally the prime directive, of course, about not wanting to interfere with the development of an emerging civilization. And I suppose it's the anthropological argument that if you were studying a more primitive society like Earth, if you're advanced aliens, you wouldn't want to contaminate that, because then you just spoil the experiment, so to speak.
We've talked a lot about people coming to Earth. What about the other way around, us sending our signals out? I know that we've been sending a few radio waves and things like that. I don't know if I'm correct in saying that, but I know we have been sending some messages. Is there any that you've seen that have arrived somewhere or been received?
Well, you're right. We have been sending messages, some deliberately, but of course our TV and radio broadcasts spread out from Earth at the speed of light. So if you think of how long we've had radio, stars 100 light years away or more have probably heard from us by now. And in a few years' time, by the way, this broadcast will be out there and people will be picking it up and kind of dissecting it.
I love the idea of some aliens just outside the Milky Way galaxy just hearing the Beatles for the first time.
Yeah,
or seeing some of our sci-fi movies or horror movies and thinking, my goodness, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
True.
Well, Nick, and here's the thing. You obviously worked in the Ministry of Defence for 21 years. You've worked on highly classified government projects. You've been so gracious giving us your time this evening. Do you think if there is that contact one day, or it's that global thing of like, well, the aliens are here, do you think you're getting a call from the British government and they're saying, look, you seem to be pretty well versed in this, we're going to send this guy out to go and have a chat?
I hope so, because look, it would change every aspect of our society deeply and profoundly. Politics, religion, science, technology, the economy, everything. So I think they would pull together a group of people. And if I get a call and I'm asked to be in that group, I'm there.
The hand's up. The hand is up. Well, Nick, you've been so fabulous. Thank you so much for answering so many of our questions. I'm sure if you ever let this slip, at a pub or anything, people are just going to be battering you with these questions all the time. So you've obviously answered them many times, but we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Wow, there you go. Our chat with Nick Pope, an expert in all things aliens.
No alien ant farm. I said this was a professional podcast. Now, thank you for listening. We hope you learned a little bit about aliens.
What is that?
No one even knows that.
You don't know Alien by Sabrina Carpenter and Jonas Blue?
No.
Sorry.
No one knows
have we
that.
played that before?
It's in the system.
Can we have a listen? Sorry, can you just play a little
Can
bit
we hear a bit of it?
Yeah.
even hear the word alien in there.
Is
Yeah,
that?
neither.
Hopefully that's not new. She's definitely gone up from that.
Yeah, definitely a bit better. Also, apologies to anyone who clicked on this podcast thinking we did a 13-minute long interview with the goalkeeper for Newcastle United, Nick Pope. Different Nick Pope. Or the Pope. Sorry to all the Catholics who listened, being like, whoa, world exclusive with the Pope.
Yeah.
It's not the Pope.
Also, there's a Pope who plays for the Adelaide Strikers spin bowler.
Yep.
There's also a Pope who works for Nova in Adelaide.
Mm-hmm. Pope
Yep,
D.
that's Adam Pope, though, so it's not Nick Pope. So no one would confuse that.
Oh, was your guy also Nick Pope, Ben?
Yeah.
Let's go with
I
that.
think he-
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Bye.
And that's it!
Liked that podcast? There's heaps more to listen to if you just scroll back or download the Nova Player app.
Ben, Liam, and Bell.